The show is anything but normal when Tom Curran joins us, and he's with us now on loan from NBC Sports Boston. What's been the fallout, Tom, locally, of the comments last week from owner Robert Kraft, where he was very candid about draft problems that the team has had in recent years and the current struggles of the franchise? What's been the reaction to that?
I think it was eye-widening for people to hear Robert Kraft specifically criticize Bill Belichick in no uncertain terms. And, actually, I say that, and he didn't. He criticized the performance of the team in certainly ways that he is entitled to. Haven't drafted well, no lie there. Can't make all of our moves in free agency. We have to draft better. No lies there. I just think that for a team that is so cloistered and tight-lipped, it was interesting to hear Robert Kraft speak so frankly. Look, he's 80 and Belichick's 69. And I think those things have to enter into the conversation. All due respect to what he's done, but we're not sitting around and thinking that 7-9, 8-8, and 10-6 are okay, given what we do and how good Bill is.
So then what is the remedy for that this year? Do you see the Patriots making a move in the first round to maybe trade up?
Miles, I don't. I think that, and Mike Lombardi was very good on it, I thought, on his podcast on the Ringer, the GM Shuffle podcast. He talked about the fact that there are going to be grades on players. And once you get past those first three quarterbacks who are definitely going to go, then you're talking about numbers. Are the grades on Mac Jones or Trey Lance going to have them as what would be top 10 quarterbacks in the league? And that's how Mike Lombardi was defining it when you get to that point. And probably not. My guess is all those quarterbacks and all those wide receivers and Kyle Pitts thrown in and a tackle here and there are going to drive down the board a really good player who's probably going to have better relevance to the Patriots more quickly than a projected quarterback. And that to me is the interesting shuffle, Mike, when you think about it. What's better, the best linebacker or the developmental quarterback with high upside? And then you have to add in 80-year-old owner, 69-year-old head coach.
You almost made Robert Kraft 88, and let me just correct you because he's not quite 80 yet. He's not 80 until June. And I suspect if I were pushing a milestone birthday and someone was trying to give me that next number before I was there, I wouldn't be happy about it. Let me enjoy the last 2 months of being 79, please. That would be my
confirm.
And we also want to be accurate here. Miles, who is facing down 30 at some point between now and October the 8th, can confirm that. What do you think the chances are, though? Let's say they stay put at 15. Let's say one of these guys sneaks through. A Justin Fields somehow sneaks through. They haven't taken a first-round quarterback since Drew Bledsoe, number 1 overall in 1993. One reason is they went 20 years with Tom Brady, and there was no reason to. But would it be a temptation to get that guy that you could make the next 10, 15-year quarterback of the team if he happens to slip through the cracks and be there when the Patriots are on the clock?
It has to be, and that's the interesting thing when we do talk about grades. The Patriots might have been married to grades in 2018. They drafted Sony Michel at 31. At 32, Lamar Jackson goes. Sony Michel helped them win a Super Bowl in 2018, but has been probably at best a part-time but somewhat productive running back since. Lamar Jackson's got an MVP. So would they be better off had they taken Lamar Jackson, or did they have a grade? Look, he's a third-round pick. If he's there, we'll take him then, but his grade isn't high enough. So what will the persuasiveness of a Fields be or a Trey Lance be if he's still sitting there, if they're still sitting there at 15? What's the upside? How quickly can they help you win? What's interesting, guys, is the floor the Patriots operate on, because Bill Belichick is their head coach. They had the worst roster in football offensively last year, if you ask me. Decent offensive line to better offensive line. Okay running backs, but embarrassingly bad at the wide receiver and tight end positions. A non-starter as a passer in Cam Newton. And they still won 7 games. So their floor is so high that to upgrade those positions that were embarrassing last year, make them what? 9-7, 9-8, 10-7.
Hard to get used to.
Yeah.
I know. So that to me becomes the question. Do you want to get Micah Parsons? Do you want to get the successor to Stephon Gilmore and take Caleb Farley? Or if he's still sitting there, do you want to take the left tackle of the future? Or do you want to try and get a quarterback who may or may not be ready in 2 or 3 years because, wow, you need a quarterback?
Well, but when you look at the division, though, and you see that Buffalo's got Josh Allen, Miami, you know, they've got Tua Tagovailoa, jury's still out on him. Jets are going to get Zach Wilson. I think we all know that, and the jury will still be out on him. Does that maybe create some urgency to make sure that they have their quarterback, maybe not just of the future, but even of the present on the roster?
It's so fair. It's a fair question, but here's what I would say. How many darts did the Bills have to throw at the board in the top 5 or top 10 to get the guy? And the Patriots are still at 15. The Jets are going to throw a second dart in 3 years at a top 5 pick. Miami, we know the litany of quarterbacks who started there. So it's hard to predict. It's how well do you think Trey Lance and Justin Fields and or Mac Jones are going to perform if he's the guy that slips, which I think he should. I think he's probably going to have the lowest ceiling of the group, highest floor, lowest ceiling. Which one do you want? Which one do you want to say, okay, that guy is going to be our future here if he's not spectacular? I mean, to me, I look at Mac Jones and say, best case scenario, Kirk Cousins. Worst case, Colt McCoy.
Tom, Jimmy Garoppolo's name has been in circulation the past 2 weeks after the 49ers move up from 12 to 3 to draft a quarterback. It's clear that's what they're doing. It's clear Jimmy Garoppolo's not in their plans. It's clear the 49ers are trying to posture for a trade. I don't think anyone wants to touch a $25 million compensation package for Jimmy Garoppolo. Could be a Trent Brown type of a deal where Jimmy takes less, reasonable draft pick along those lines. Could the Patriots be in play for something like that with Jimmy G for significantly less than $25 million, mid to late round pick to the 49ers, add him to the mix? I know you believed that in the past. Do you see it happening now that it's clear he's not going to be with the 49ers over the long haul?
In conversations I've had, in order to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo and bring him on and get him to accept a pay cut, that's almost a non-starter from what I understand. Because if you're going to trade for him, you're saying, okay, we just added all these pieces. We want you to be our trigger man. And why don't you take a pay cut too? Because $25 million for a player that you're going to trade for is not insane the way the quarterback prices have risen. So you can't bring him in and say, why don't you play for 18 or 20 or we'll redo your contract. I just don't think it's something that would be as appealing to him. So you're going to have to wait for him to get cut and then be the highest bidder and then figure it out. To me, the simpler way to do it with simply almost an East Coast version of Jimmy Garoppolo is to go get Teddy Bridgewater, send a 4th round pick to the Carolina Panthers, maybe even a 3rd, and you bring on a guy who's $8 million less, who's just as accurate, who may be just about as durable, is as good a leader. It's the same guy. I mean, am I nuts on that? Everybody I mentioned it to says, yeah, kind of.
Well, I covered the first part of Teddy Bridgewater's season with the Panthers last year, and I just wasn't very impressed with the way that he played. I mean, I know that he's a guy that has won games, but he's also someone who doesn't seem to be able to necessarily elevate you past the point of diminishing returns, if that makes any sense.
It does. It's like 10-2. He's got his hands at 10-2. Is he going to make? Yes. Is he going to lift all boats? I don't know if Jimmy does. Cam Newton certainly doesn't. Jarrett Stidham may not. But there's that. Yeah, you're right, Miles. It's who lifts all boats? How many guys do that, Mike?
Well, and speaking of guys lifting boats, the question is how many boats are going to be in the water? Julian Edelman, there's a report that it's doubtful he'll be able to play the entire 2021 season. You know Edelman well. Where do things stand currently with his health and his ability? And is there some flicker at the core of this where Edelman's trying to finagle a path to Tampa Bay in a reunion with Tommy and Gronk?
From the people I've spoken to, my understanding is that first, health-wise, the procedure that he had done last year was really to get him back to where he was in August. He was so battered in 2019, shoulder, knee, ribs, that he came off the field that year, really diminished. His knee never really healed fully, and then it worsened during the year. When he had a procedure done during the year, it was to bring him back to where he was at the start. It didn't fix everything. So it's more of a take the field, hope, and see how it goes. So the report, and I think it was from Curran that there's doubt that he'll play every game. That's certainly, I think that we would all take the under on 17 games for Julian Edelman. But will he still have value? Yes. And one interesting thing about Edelman, in contrast to an Amendola or a Gronk or a Brady, is that he kind of does bleed Patriots silver, blue, whatever it is. So he might not want to go anywhere else. I think that he has that affection, affinity, and loyalty to Bill Belichick that those other guys were able to get out of their systems. Put it that way.
That is the one thing I wanted to ask you about Edelman is just where do you put him in terms of importance as a wide receiver in Patriots history? Because he seems like he should be up there.
Yeah, I mean, the Mount Rushmore of Patriots wide receivers would be, I think, certainly Stanley Morgan from the 70s and 80s, Edelman. And then I guess you would say Moss. I hate to miss somebody else, but Moss and I guess Deion Branch. That's it. And Edelman's certainly there too. Edelman is a punt returner. Look, Edelman wins 3 Super Bowls while he's here. He helps throw them to a win in 2014 over the Ravens. He's the MVP of the Super Bowl win over the Rams. He makes the ridiculous catch against the Falcons. I think he's probably, and Welker should be included in that too. But I think he's probably the best wide receiver in terms of production, performance, and big game moments in Patriots history.
No Chad Jackson? Where's Chad Jackson on that list? But there really is a long list of failures at the receiver position. And that takes me to my last question for you, Tom. How surprised were you by the fact that somebody's blabbing, whether it's someone who's there or someone who's no longer there? The Albert Breer report that Bill Belichick went off the board to pick N'Keal Harry. Scouts had A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel ranked higher. Belichick goes it alone. Harry's a bust. The other 2 are pretty good. Usually that's the kind of stuff that doesn't make its way to the media. Surprised it did?
Not entirely, just because of the intimations I've heard over the years and from different people in the organization, not players necessarily, but look, in the end, it's acknowledged that Bill, for whatever his salary is, and it was bandied about that it might be more than $20 million earlier this year, that he has final say. And final say does not include talking to area scouts, does not include talking to, the college scouting director necessarily. It's Bill, it's Ernie Adams, it's Nick Caserio. And people who grew up at Belichick's elbow or right hand don't necessarily say, Bill, this is the wrong call. What's interesting is, though, when you watch the video from the war room with N'Keal Harry being selected, Belichick stares and stares and stares at the board, and he has Nick Caserio saying to him, it's Harry. It's Harry here, Bill. It's Harry. So I don't know. I mean, someone unveiled the process to get to Harry. But it was, I did see your sleuthing. I know that goes against all the unwrittens, but it is something we always do in the media. Where'd that come from? And I think that you're probably exactly right.
Well, and look, the reason I believed what I believe is because if you look between the lines last week to what Robert Kraft said, the guy who's not there anymore, who was there last year, a potential target for the criticism that Robert Kraft has levied on the draft process. On that note, we will bid farewell and say thank you to Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.